a junior member of the US National Guard has just appeared in court in Boston to face espionage charges over a huge leak of secret government documents. Jack Teixeira, who is 21, was arrested by FBI agents yesterday. The material reveals sensitive intelligence on topics including the war in Ukraine. And some of the pictures from the last few minutes with family members and others and the legal teams leaving the court in Boston. In the last 45 minutes or so, that news emerging that that whole court appearance has been completed. The key line was the charge, of course, charged with unauthorised removal and retention of classified documents and materials. And we know that he will be detained pending trial. Not quite clear in terms of when exactly that trial will be slated for, but certainly he will be detained pending trial, and he has been allocated a public defender. But that court appearance happening as, of course, all the media flocking round the family members and the legal teams firing questions, and so many questions there are of how this 21-year-old was able to access the level of sensitive documents that we actually saw. We know a little more about him. He is 21. He is a member of the US Air National Guard. He was listed as a member of the intelligence wing of the Massachusetts Air National Guard, and we also have documents filed by the US government confirming that he has held top security clearance since 2021. And according to our CBS partners, he joined that US government department, the US Air National Guard, back in 2019. So more of the details coming in all of the time. We'll return to those pictures around the court. Very fluid situation there. But I've been talking to Jess Parker in Washington, who's also, of course, monitoring what is happening. This is her latest assessment.
Been getting news from the court in Boston. As you've been outlining, what we're hearing is the suspect, Jack Teixeira, has been charged with unauthorised removal and retention of classified documents and materials. That from a US magistrate judge, and we're told as well that he'll qualify for a public defender. There were reports earlier that it wasn't actually clear if the suspect had a lawyer, and we're told as well that the US Justice Department has requested that he be detained pending trial. So some breaking lines out of the court this morning here in the US. Of course, it was only yesterday that we got those quite dramatic pictures emerging of an arrest as FBI officers swooped down to arrest the 21-year-old suspect. He was just dressed in a short pair of shorts and a T-shirt, arrested, as we understand it, near the family home, and now quickly to court this morning to face those charges.
Jess, we're seeing some of those pictures now in terms of what you've described, but the Pentagon a little earlier talking about why someone like this, a 21-year-old, would have access to the sorts of documents he had, talking about a review. But I mean, in terms of understatement, that really takes the biscuit, doesn't it?
Yeah, look, I think the Pentagon, the US government, facing some pretty serious questions now about how the suspect may have accessed these documents, which is alleged, of course, that they were posted online amongst a kind of pretty small group of gamers from different parts of the world. And eventually the documents, it's reported, escaped that smaller group and began to leak more widely. Now, yes, we're being told that the Pentagon is going to review how highly secretive, highly sensitive information is distributed. But it's not as if we haven't talked about these kinds of issues before. There have been quite high-profile cases in the last 15 years of leaks out of the US. And so I think it won't just be a question for the Biden administration, for example. It will be more systemic, looking at how this has happened. And the US networks, watching them this morning, constant sort of security experts coming on, being asked again and again, how could somebody who was relatively young potentially, possibly have access to this kind of information if they were also quite junior in their rank as well. Of course, the 21-year-old suspect, a very young age, so lots of questions being asked, and I suppose over the coming days and weeks, then more of these questions may be answered, but it has been an embarrassing episode for the United States, certainly.
Yes, you alluded to it, but I mean, plenty of warnings with Chelsea Manning and Edward Snowden in the past. So the obvious question of how something like this could happen again. But perhaps this time it is slightly different because he's not a whistleblower. He's not a foreign agent. He's not discontent or sceptical about the US government. This appears to be just a 21-year-old effectively showing off.
Yeah, I mean, that is certainly the kind of reports that we have been getting out of in the last few days. So this suggestion that the suspect, as I mentioned before, was part of a kind of online group of gamers where they took part in a number of kind of activities together, including, for example, praying together, playing games, watching films. And suggestions have been from friends on that group in reports here in the US that maybe the suspect was just almost trying to impress the other young men on this group. So no suggestion really at the moment of some sophisticated foreign agent operation. So again, yes, that does raise questions. It does, I think, again, cause some embarrassment for the US government.
That's Jessica Parker talking to me as news of those charges were dropped there in the court.